the weekend. Labor Day. I always look forward to it. It's another day of recreation, and that's what it's supposed to be because folks in this country work awful hard. But there is a story that has developed that the corporate media paid no attention to. I bring it to light this morning here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. There's a thing that's called walking the walk. You can say you support something, and you can put aside all political risk and calculation and go out and do it. That's called walking the walk. That's exactly what Bernie Sanders did on Friday in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Number one, over 2,000 people showed up. That's the second largest crowd in this election cycle in Iowa. That's significant. Number two, you have a presidential candidate who walks the walk, walked with the workers who were picketing outside a plant in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Ingredion is the name of the company. They're an out-of-state company. They've got the workers working without a contract. The contract has not been signed. The workers are threatening to strike. So they're picketing at the Penford Products plant. The Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers Union Local 100G. They're outside picketing, and who's in the line with them? Bernie Sanders. That's walking the walk. That's a guy that's willing to put it all on the line against the corporations. The anti-union folks are going to line up against Bernie, and he's not going to kowtow to them. He's not going to kiss their ass or anything like that. That's the realism that this guy has brought to this campaign. He walks the walk. Now, there have been times where we have seen politicians say one thing and do another. Now, if you're an Obama fan, I'm just going to give you fair warning. You're not going to like what I'm going to tell you right now, but the fact is I can back it up. That may pique your curiosity. On Labor Day yesterday, the president gave a speech in Boston talking about unions and how important they are. And let's document that there's no way that Barack Obama would have been reelected without union help in Ohio and in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. It would not happen. Mitt Romney would be your president. It was the social networking. It was the door-to-door. It was the boots on the ground. It was the money. It was a lot of things that unions put in, and Barack Obama was their choice over Mitt Romney. And Barack Obama was a no-show in Wisconsin. And he has the nerve to go to Boston and talk about the Republican Party and how they're attacking workers. Let me remind you, when these workers were being attacked in 2011 in Wisconsin, Barack Obama, through the counseling of David Axelrod and Robert Gibbs, Obama was a no-show because he did not want to get into the political fight. They said it was a state issue, which is total bullshit. Now, this is the president speaking at a rally in Boston yesterday.
What we're seeing from them is this constant war against unions, a constant attack on working Americans by weakening worker protections, undermining workplace safety, gutting your ability to save for retirement, preventing you from forming a union. I mean, this is a party that says it wants to rebrand itself. I'm going to quote them here. They said they want to be the party of the American worker and the party of higher wages. Well, that's great. But think about it. They oppose raising the minimum wage. They're doing everything they can to bust unions. And then they want to claim to be the party of the American worker.
So now that you're not running for re-election, Mr. President, are you now apparently willing to come out and list all the things that Scott Walker did to AFSCME in Wisconsin and how union membership has been decimated and attacking voices in the workplace is exactly what he did? But back then you were silent. Barack Obama, when it comes to unions, is a phony, a 100% phony. For him not to jump into Wisconsin years ago changed the landscape of what workers are facing today. We've got 26 states that have had right-to-work legislation passed. And where is Obama? On Obama's watch, unions have gone backwards. Yet he goes out on Labor Day and talks this crap. Here's more crap from Obama.
One candidate, he is bragging about how he destroyed collective bargaining rights in his state.
He should. He did.
And says that busting unions prepares him to fight ISIL.
So, okay, I've heard enough of Obama because I know who Obama is when it comes to collective bargaining. I know who Obama is when it comes to the Employee Free Choice Act. I know who Obama is when it comes to standing up in front of the cameras when the country is focusing in on 100,000 protesters outside the state capitol. Obama was a no-show. But I can tell you a story of Bernie Sanders in front of 2,000 people in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, who walks with the workers and talks about corporate greed and says we're going to stand together and we're going to get this contract and we're going to do everything we can for working families. You know, for Obama right now on Labor Day in Boston, oh, hell, it's just a big joke about what the Republicans are doing. Mr. President, you're right in there with the Republicans. Oh, by the way, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is the absolute worst trade deal this country could ever be involved in, every single union in this country is against it, and Obama, you're pushing it. I know where Bernie Sanders stands on it. I don't know where Hillary Clinton is, and I also know that Joe Biden needs to come clean. Now, Biden's out on the campaign trail in Pittsburgh yesterday, or he hasn't announced yet. And let me just say this. The issues are different today than what they were in 2012, in 2008, 2004, and in the 90s. Union membership is under attack. Workers are under attack. And there is absolutely no question that Joe Biden has been a good ally to unions over the years. But now we're at nut-cutting time. And now we're on the verge of doing a trade deal that is going to gut the middle class in this country even further. Joe is still good for the rally, and Joe still sounds good at the rallies.
There's a simple correlation. Build labor, we build America. Build labor, we build the middle class. And folks, let me tell you what I mean by middle class. It's not a number, it's a value set. To be middle class means you have a chance to own your home, not just rent it. It means you can send your kid to a park in the neighborhood and you know they're going to come home safely. It means you're going to be able to send your kid to a school, and if they do well, they want to go to school after high school, they'll be able to go. And you'll be able to pay to get them there.
It sounds great. It sounds great. No one's arguing with any of that. But what we're arguing with is that this vice president has gone out on the campaign trail and also worked the halls of Congress trying to make this, quote, pivot to Asia, which the corporate media won't cover. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a trade deal that will involve 12 countries that will gut the middle class so bad. In fact, Richard Trumka is on record as saying if they do this trade deal, we won't need any more trade deals. That it's going to be a total race to the bottom. That this trade deal is flawed on so many levels. That's why I spent so much time covering it when I was doing cable news. So the bottom line here is we hear all the right things on Labor Day. But what we don't hear is a total commitment and somebody walking the walk. Obama never walked the walk. It's time for Joe Biden to walk the walk, and Bernie Sanders has walked the walk. When we come back, Leo Gerard, President, United Steelworkers International, joins us after this. Stay with us. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegotahead.com, or go to biogreenclean.com, www.biogreenclean, and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns.
It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor.
They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up.
And the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Continuing to grow here at We Got Ed, rawstory.com, and ringofireradio.com. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Now, we were talking about Labor Day and all the right things. Excuse me. We were talking about Labor Day and all the right. We were talking about Labor Day and all the right things being said at the rallies, and significantly, we have to come to grips with this, that the issues are much more severe today. They are different today than they were in 12 and in 8 and in 04. And the bottom line here is that there has to be a fine line that has to be walked by the labor folks right now. They don't have to endorse anybody because they have to know who is on their side, whether it be the Employee Free Choice Act or whether it be the Trans-Pacific Partnership. These two things are far more sensitive today than what they were in previous election cycles. For instance, the steel industry is going through something it hasn't seen in some 30 years. Joining us now is Leo Gerard. He is the United Steelworkers International President. Mr. Gerard, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Ed. You're right on.
Well, it's China, it's South Korea, it's India, and it's a landscape that middle-class workers in this country are constantly fighting.
Well,
and so this brings us to a point. All right, which candidate is going to do the most, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think, as you said, our union is not in a hurry to step out and endorse anyone yet. We got to see who's going to be in at the final bell. But whether you're watching Donald Trump and laughing at him, or whether you're watching Bernie and being amazed by what he's doing, they're both in many ways hitting on the same issue. The disenchantment of the middle class, the erosion of manufacturing, the rotten trade deals that keep destroying the industrial base of the country. We just saw in the last couple of weeks, China devalued their currency again. And now it was followed suit by South Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia, and some of the TPP countries. And so if China's not going to get sanctioned for devaluing its currency, why wouldn't it do it again? And why wouldn't the other Asian countries follow them? So that we need to have someone who's going to finally stand up. And I just want to say that for people that care about the middle class, your voice on the Ed Show is a very powerful voice, and you and others have helped galvanize this issue so that now, unlike 2012 and 2008, 2004, this issue is now going to be front and center in any campaign.
Well, you know, what you just said in the last minute, Mr. Gerard, is what I think the American people need to hear from someone who wants to be president of the United States. The severity of the issue sounds so much different coming from you than it does from these people who want union endorsements. Now, the story reads that union leaders are playing hard to get with the candidates, such as Hillary Clinton, and she says she's not going to take anything for granted. Bernie Sanders is out there walking with the workers in Cedar Rapids, Iowa on Friday. Joe Biden has, on record for years, been a good labor guy. But, of course, he's out doing the work of the president on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I mean, is there going to come a time when labor's going to have to turn to old friends and say we got new issues, this is what we need? What about that?
Well, I think we're going to turn to friends, and you know, maybe it's my sensitivity, but these aren't new issues. They're issues that we're finally getting people to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Our union has been yelling about these issues now.
Yeah.
I'm the third international president that's been yelling the same thing, and each time it gets more intense, more intense, more intense. And the reality is, Ed, that if we just look at China has 500 million tons of domestic overcapacity in steel. That's almost 4.5 times more steel than America uses in one whole year. They're going to dump that because they don't want another tenement square. We've got overcapacity in all forms of paper. We've seen what happened with tires. We filed a case with tires. We won it. 3 years later, they dumped 50 million plus tires into our market in less than 6 months. So at some point, somebody's got to get wise and say to China, enough's enough. And why should it have to be the union that files the complaint? Why doesn't the trade representative office have the budget to police the trade deals, police the trade rules? Why should it be the labor movement that has to police the trade rules? I wasn't, when I first ran for office in the union, I never dreamt that my job would be fighting trade deals. I thought my job would be negotiating collective agreements and working on health and safety issues and workers' rights. And so now that we've turned ourselves into the trade police, that should be the government's job.
Yeah. And that's what's so disheartening about all of this. So what has to happen? What do you need a candidate to do? And is this going to be a different political run this time?
I think it's going to be a different political run, and we need a candidate that's actually going to mean what they say and say what they mean when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to trade, when it comes to infrastructure. Look, I'm not prepared to dump all over the president.
Yeah.
When you figure that what he inherited was losing 700,000 jobs a month, and we've had God knows how many continuous months of employment growth. But at the same time as we've had that employment growth, we've had the erosion of the industrial base. We've had a president that's tried to bring forward a very, very constructive infrastructure program that would have put people back to work and had a strong Buy America provision in it. And even with that strong Buy America provision in it, the Republicans stymied it every step of the way. First it was the Senate when they were able to filibuster, and then it was the House when they didn't, and then they've gone back and forth trying to stop progress. So the president on that side has been good, but on the side of whacking China for the continuous violations, I actually said to a couple of politicos the other night that one of the things that would be useful is to say to a country, you're prepared to say to poor people, 3 strikes and you're out. Well, why don't we say to a country, if you violated our trade rules 3 times, you're out. 3 strikes and you're out. You're not allowed back in the market.
If the economy in China is starting to falter and has been for several months. In fact, there was a story carried the other day that their manufacturing is at the lowest level it's been in some time. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that there's a lot of product on the market that they've created that they're not moving. Or do I have that wrong? How does that play into American workers?
Well, what you've got is that whether it's steel, paper, tire, rubber, aluminum, all those things, they have domestic overcapacity. They can't afford, politically or economically, to stop their factories from running, because if they do, they're going to have riots in the streets like they had with Tiananmen Square.
Sure.
So they're going to keep getting away with what they can get away with, and they're going to keep throwing their product into any country they can get it into, whether it's the United States, Canada, Brazil, Europe. The Europeans are starting to take strong action against China. And so what that does is it not only takes away our jobs, it depresses the prices. So, for example, now you were in the pipe mill in Lorain, Ohio. That pipe mill is pretty much idled. And the reason it's idled is that 53% of the pipe coming into America is coming from Asian countries that don't play by the rules. Mm-hmm. So that not only do they steal our jobs, but they drive down the prices for the jobs that are left, and our companies can't make money.
And now that plant's been idled, that's a story that needs to be told again to wake up America that this is what's happening.
And in that plant, Ed, you were there. Company U.S. Steel put almost $300 million into the modernization of that plant, only to get knocked out of the market by South Korea, who are dumping. Yeah. And when we won the case against South Korea, rather than adhere to it, they increased their exports. So when they increased their exports, what we should have done is punish them. Bang, done.
Trade wars is what it is. And it seems
there's a trade war going on, but we're not the ones fighting it.
That's right, and we're not doing anything to protect our markets whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so this is affecting Main Street, Lorain, Ohio, which is exactly what Bernie Sanders is talking about when it comes to the middle class. The issues on the middle class today are far greater than what they were 4 years ago. And it all stems from lousy trade agreements. And now we're on the verge of doing the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I spent countless hours doing on television, and I'm still sounding the alarm on this. This is the worst thing this country could do, and every union is against it.
Yeah.
So,
and Ed, you've made the point accurately and articulately. The fact of the matter is that unless we do something about it, I can see on the horizon the continued erosion of our industrial base. That'll be steel, aluminum, paper, glass, tire, rubber, and with the rules of origin. If you got the rules of origin that we have in South Korea, people don't realize that for an instrument or a car or whatever to be considered a South Korean article, all it needs is 35% domestic content.
yeah.
So even the South Koreans can get their stuff from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Brunei. They can get it from wherever the hell they want, and it's still consistent with the rules.
Yeah.
No, it's
Leo
crazy.
Gerard, you just keep up the fight, my friend. Let's end this on a positive note. Are the Steelers going to be any good?
The Steelers are always good. Even when they're bad, they're good. And I got to be careful, but our guys were staying at the William Penn, and the Steelers that were in the practice squad and in training camp,
Yeah.
some of them were staying in the hotel. And when Michael Vick went walking by, a couple of our guys started barking like a dog. I had to give them shit. Take care.
It's all in good fun. Leo Gerard,
Good
United
night.
Steelworkers International President. Great to have you with us, Leo. Thanks so much. When we come back, David K. Johnston, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, on exactly where workers are today when it comes to disposable income, where workers' wages have gone in the last 10 years. Stay with us. We're right back on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The Ed Schultz Internet broadcast is brought to you by the Ring of Fire radio show. Listen to the Ring of Fire weekends on radio stations across the country. Get more information and the news of the day at ringoffireradio.com.
Always good to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. On the heels of Labor Day, we roll it into this week, starting out on a Tuesday. The fact is that workers are on a slippery slope in our economy. Yes, we've had 65 months of private sector job growth. Wall Street is doing well. Corporate profits are very strong, but American workers and disposable income is disappearing. You can't deny it. And David K. Johnston, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, contributing editor with Newsweek, also columnist of Al Jazeera, America, and tax analyst. Great to have you with us, David.
Well, good to be here, Ed.
You have written a very interesting piece in the Philadelphia Inquirer over the weekend. This Labor Day, it's time that the United States to catch up with the rest of the world. Where are we falling behind in very direct terms as to disposable income and what's happening to America?
Well, the bottom half of Americans in 2012 had 18% less income than they did in 2003. That's from a new IRS report that is the most detailed set of numbers they've ever given. I had to then analyze to get those numbers out of it. Of all the gains in this country over that same 10-year period from 2003 to 2012, 8% of all the increase went to 1,361 households. I mean, a town that size, you probably have never heard of a town that only has 1,361 households, and yet they got 8% of all the income. We have a a series of hidden policies that have been put in place since Ronald Reagan's election that take from the many to give to the few. And why the public is not standing up and saying, stop this massive upward redistribution, Ed, is just beyond me.
And in terms of the last decade, what kind of money are we talking about? $300, $400, $500, $600 a month in income? Put a real number to it.
Well, the average income, as reported on tax returns of the bottom half of Americans, is $14,775. Think about that for a minute. That's $1,200 a month in round numbers. That's the average of the bottom 50%. Now, a lot of those are two-income households where they file separate tax returns, people who aren't married but they live together. So the numbers would be somewhat higher, but they're not tremendous numbers. But maybe the most telling one is this: the median annual earnings from work. Median means half make more and half make less. Has been stuck at about $520 a week, adjusted for inflation, $520 a week since 1998.
So
17 years with no change, Ed. That's just incredible.
So what reverses this downward spiral? And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you've given us the definition of an economic downward spiral for American workers. What reverses that?
Well, we have to have government policies that stop coddling people at the top. I mean, as you know, I've pointed out in the past, if you're a billionaire, you're allowed legally to live tax-free by borrowing against your assets. That you can borrow right now at I just got a solicitation to borrow at 1%. So certainly billionaires can borrow at 1%. Why would you pay a minimum tax of 20% by cashing in any of your gains? That's one thing that we've got to stop, this not having to recognize the income you have. We need fundamentally unions, and I always tell conservatives, if you believe in market economics, then you should believe in unions, because individual workers have no bargaining power against multi-billion-dollar employers, whether they're the school district or a city government or a corporation.
So
you've got to have unions.
So, David, where has the 65 months of private sector job growth come from? Is it the financial sector? Is it the service sector? It certainly isn't manufacturing. What is it?
Right. Well, it's now 66 months, by the way. We just got the new data. It has come largely in low-paid service jobs or jobs that pay in the low six figures that essentially are services to the wealthy. Banking, legal services, financial management services. But an enormous amount of this growth is at the bottom of the pile. And in the long run, Ed, if we don't start recognizing that driving wages down and this argument that we should get rid of the minimum wage, well, why don't we just go back to slavery if we're going to do that, that driving it down will destroy social stability, it destroys families, it destroys the work ethic. If Portugal, with less than half the income per person we have, can afford universal health care and retirement plans, how can we not afford these things?
Is there a candidate out there that you think has a game plan, either on the right or the left, a Democrat or Republican or independent, that appears to have a complete grasp of this and would do something about it, or has set forth policies that would change this downward spiral?
Well, Sanders, and I'm not for or against any candidate here. Okay?
I know you're not. I know you're not, but I'm talking policy.
Ed Sanders has clearly articulated the issues that are out there, and part of the reason he's drawing such big crowds, and part of the reason conservatives voted for him overwhelmingly as a congressman and a senator, is that he understands the economics of people who are not gazillionaires, because he talks with people, he listens to people, and he pays attention to the data. To really get change, though, we've got to get state legislatures changed, because they draw the congressional districts, and they've gerrymandered unionists, Black Americans, young people into highly concentrated districts. So Congress is not representative of the voters. And we've got to get people registered to vote and to the polls on Election Day. I mean, it all doesn't matter if you don't vote. If you don't vote, then you let the Koch brothers with their campaign to put their policies in place, which they sincerely believe in. That don't demonize them. They're serious people who believe their policies will be good for America. They're going to win again and again and again, because they've got the resources to get people to the polls who support their vision of America.
David K. Johnston, always great to visit. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Thanks so much for
Thank you, Ed.
waking up America to exactly what's going on. Thanks so much. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. We're back tomorrow.